Welcome to the Ketovangelist Kitchen. I'm Brian.
And I'm Carrie.
And this podcast is dedicated to making things simple and easy for you in the kitchen. Carrie Brown is a classically trained, world-class chef who has a passion for creating ketogenic recipes that taste better than anything you've ever experienced. But more than that, she loves teaching people how to cook the right way.
And each week on this podcast, Brian and I discuss all the ways you can create awesome keto food that is guaranteed to make you a rock star in the kitchen.
If you'd like to learn more about Ketovangelist Kitchen, you can go to KetoVangelistKitchen.com and sign up for the newsletter.
In exchange for your email address, you'll get brand new recipes delivered to your inbox, ready for you to whip up in the kitchen and enjoy with your friends and family.
So sit back, relax, and get ready to laugh and learn. You're about to enter the Ketovangelist Kitchen. Sometimes we just decide to do some experimental stuff, and today is one of those days. I'm sorry, hang on a second. So I say to Carrie, "Hey, what are we gonna do today?" And she says, "Hey, let's cook a pork chop." So I'm like, "Really? What?" "No, seriously, let's cook a pork." This is my Carrie Brown impersonation. "Let's cook a pork chop." And that's a dead-on impersonation of Carrie. So I said, "Are you sure? Don't we need to work out some logistics on that or something?" She's like, "Nah, screw it. We'll just cook a pork chop." So today on the Ketovangelist Kitchen, I'm going to watch Carrie Brown set her kitchen on fire. Oh, hi, Carrie Brown. How are you?
I'm weeping.
I'm sorry. Oh, this
Can you see the tears? Look, I'm literally weeping.
Oh, this is horrible radio.
I've got stomachache. I'm laughing so hard.
Okay, so all right, so
hello, lovely people.
Right, this is Ketovangelist Kitchen. I'm Brian. That's Carrie, and we are going to
we are having quite a funny day.
Carrie Brown is going to live on the air cook a pork chop.
No, now, I'm not going to actually cook a pork chop, not in my kitchen.
This is I was sold a false bill of goods. That was the whole point. I was waiting for the sizzle and pop to go. No? All right, fine.
Did you miss the memo? You get to do the sizzle. I'm going to walk you through it, and Brian's going to be the sizzle.
Right, okay. So this is, someone dial 91 and just get ready for the next digit, because that's we're going to need it. All right. So here's the thing. Carrie Brown says to me, she says, "I love pork chops." And I was like, "Who is this?" And she was like, "No, seriously, I love pork chops, but they're so easily
not as much as lettuce." But yes, I do love pork chops.
There's a whole different discussion with the lettuce thing. Don't even start. So she said, "I love pork chops, but they get really messed up all the time. People have a hard time doing them." And then she told me this story. Go ahead. So tell us the story again.
So pork chops are kind of famous for being dry. And I think I'm not alone when I say that. I always think, "Ooh, pork chops," and then you cook them and they're like, "Oh, pork chops," because they always come out dry. And so one day I was in my therapist's office and I got there a bit early, and I picked up this kind of scientific magazine-y thing. It was some crazy scientific paper on the science of cooking a pork chop.
Now, hold on. For those of you who aren't sure, there's an entire magazine dedicated to the science of cooking a pork chop. This wasn't just like a one-time thing. This is like an annual publication that they're talking about.
I wish that I could remember what publication it was in, because it was just magical. And I got to my therapist's office really early for reasons I don't remember now. And so I was reading this entire article. It was like 7 pages of scientific gobbledygook on how to cook a pork chop so that it's juicy.
It's called Pork Chop Illustrated. That's the name of the magazine. Pork Chop Illustrated.
So because I love you all, although this was several years ago, so I didn't know a lot of you, but the people that followed me, and I was just like, if I could figure out a way to make pork chops juicy so that they always turned out how we think they're going to turn out in our minds, wouldn't that be awesome? So I read all 7 pages of scientific pork chop geekery, and I boiled it down. The whole article I boiled down into 6 words so that I could remember it once I'd, laid on the couch and then gone about my day. And so, because I still have people writing to me now, years later, exclaiming love for the juicy pork chops they now have in their life because of this method, I decided that Brian and I should share it with you.
Okay, so I get to guess what those 6 words were, right? I get to guess what the 6 words were that you took with you that unlocked the secret.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, here's my first guess. Don't go into the dark room. Close? Nothing? No?
Nothing. Well, the don't could be one word.
Okay, how about this? Hey, that's not really salt, man. No?
So cold.
I got one more guess. 6 words that change the way pork chops come off the grill. Okay, here I go. It's going to be you can always buy at store. No?
You are such a slacker, Williamson.
All right. So clearly I'm either I've nailed it and you just don't want to admit it, or I'm way off. Which one is it?
The latter, of course.
Oh. All right. So what were the 6 words?
So the 6 and actually there's 2 ways to put it. The 6 words could either be do not heat the pan first, or the 6 words could be start with a stone cold pan.
Okay. Now that's interesting because that goes against almost everything you hear about how to cook stuff properly, especially pork products, right? Because the specter of trichinosis is always hovering above the pork products. And so it's important that you cook them thoroughly or properly or whatever so that you don't die of pork. So what's the deal? So talk to us about that.
And of course, I don't remember any of the 7 pages of pork chop geekery, but I came home and with zero belief that this would work. And I came home and I have to tell you that the secret to pork chop nirvana, the secret to the most delicious pork chops you've ever eaten is a cold pan. So, and it sounded absurd, but I got my cold chops. This is the first time I tried it. I got my cold chops and I slapped them in a cold, dry pan, put them on the cold stove, and then whacked the heat up.
Now, when you turn the heat up, you didn't turn it up super high, right? You turned it up to what you would normally set it to?
Kind of medium high.
Right. Okay. So, there's a lot here that I need to investigate. So continue being seated.
I know you thought when I said let's cook a pork chop, I know you thought I'd lost my mind and what we're going to talk about. But you see, now here you are all interested.
Well, fine.
And you actually want to go and try it now to see if it works, don't you?
I'm not saying I don't, but maybe.
Gotcha.
All right. So here's the thing. Now you're not. Have you tried this with the different widths of pork chop?
Yes.
Okay. And what is the thickest pork chop that you've cooked with this method?
2 inches.
A 2-inch thick pork chop, and
they were awesome.
And you did not die of trichinosis.
Nope.
Okay.
I'm still here.
All right.
Woohoo!
Right. Okay. So I guess that's kind of my point. Now the other thing is, because this kind of ties into one of my pet peeves. People when they cook on the range on the stovetop, they want to crank the heat up really really high, and it's a huge frustration for me because it's unnecessary, right? So when you're starting with a cold pan, it's possible, especially if, like me, your entire cooking career, and I use the word loosely, is basically heat the pan up, put the aromatics in, with some butter, olive oil, whatever, to get the aromatics going. It's a hot pan that's going to cook everything a lot better moisture control, the whole bit, right? That's the whole thinking of that. So this runs counter. So you may want to crank the heat up higher than normal because you want to get the pan cooked, you want to get the pan hotter faster. That's not necessarily what you want to do, right? Is what I'm getting at.
Yep. Just cold stove, cold pan, cold chop, put them all together.
Do you stick
heat
the thing
up the medium?
Now you're talking about cold pan. You're not talking room temperature. You're talking about you've actually put it in the refrigerator before, right?
I have on occasions when I've been cooking a lot or testing recipes and also wanting to eat pork chops at the same time, I have been known to put my pan in the freezer to make sure it was cold before I put my pork chop in it.
I just like the fact that you phrase it in such a way. When I've been making a lot of recipes and I want to eat pork chops at the same time, that's when I do that. Like it doesn't, like I'm watching NASCAR and I want pork chops. This is what I do. Like there's like you're not eating the recipes you're making. Like I'm making like 6 recipes. I want pork chops. Like that doesn't. All right.
Does that not ever happen to you?
I eat salami and cheese, so no, not really.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, how could I have forgotten that you eat salami and cheese?
Okay, hold on.
You're going to be eating pork chops soon.
I
can tell.
I'm not disputing that. However,
because now you want a juicy pork chop because you just don't see how this could possibly work, do you?
I'm curious, and we're going to talk about that. But I do want to clear the air about something. This morning, okay, for breakfast this morning, I had sardines in olive oil and jalapeno peppers. That was my breakfast, right? So that's not salami and cheese. I'm just saying. And then for lunch, I made scallop scampi for lunch. Butter, olive oil, garlic, salt, scallops. Mix it around a little bit. Boom, done. It was.
Who are you?
So I'm just saying.
Who are you? You're an imposter.
I'm just saying.
What have you done with Brian?
I like scallops. So anyway, getting back to the pork chop thing.
Yes.
Now, you take the cold pan, you take the cold pork chop, and you put the cold pan on the stove, turn it to medium heatish, put the cold pork chop in there, bam. Then what?
And then, so what happened the first time I tried it? Because it was absurd and I just didn't think it was going to work. Anyway, so I put cold pan, cold chop, cold pan, cold stove, put the pan on the stove, put the heat up to medium. And then I watched it, and then I got a spatula and I seared it, which is when you push
right
down on it. And then I turned it over, and then I seared it. And
how much time?
Then I looked.
How much time on each side?
I peered warily into the pan.
I'm glad you cleared that up.
And the pan was completely dry, and I mean completely like
no moisture loss.
Desert.
Okay.
And I was convinced that I was going to have the driest pork chop ever.
How long on each side? Give me an idea.
We'll get to the recipe in a minute.
Oh, good
Let me
grief.
tell my story.
Fine.
And then I turned them over. And then they were golden brown. I slid them onto a plate. Because despite not preheating the pan or using oil, they did not take any longer to cook than the way I'd always cooked them before.
Okay.
Which is both impossible, totally weird, and completely awesome all at the same time. And then I ate them.
Okay.
Do you want to know why the pan was completely dry while they were cooking?
That is one question I've got. I think I know, but I'd love to hear your reasoning.
The reason is because all of those divine porky juices were sloshing around inside the chops.
Right. So here's what I'm hearing. Because it didn't take any, the time was the same. So we're talking what? 3 minutes per side, 5 minutes per side?
I'm reading my recipe here and I'm going 3 minutes. I want to say 5 minutes aside.
Right. Okay. So now here's why. You start with a heated pan already, and it's the same amount of time. You slap the pork chop down on the heated pan, all of the moisture starts to evaporate. Now, That's 5 minutes in the heat. That moisture begins to evaporate. It begins to seep out. Flip it over. Now all the moisture starts to fall because gravity still affects food when you put it in the grill or in the pan. So the water starts to drip down inside the pork chop to the heat, starts to evaporate away. Another 5 minutes gone. So you've basically 10 minutes of moisture evaporation. Now compare that with 5 minutes on each side of a cold pan. Essentially, it's not hot enough to evaporate that water, right? But it's hot enough to cook the meat, right? Am I close?
I don't know. I honestly don't remember the 7 pages of geekery. I mean, my eyes were so glazed over by the end of it. I just knew that the cold pan was the bottom line. I don't know why it works. But I like the fact that you can go through 7 pages of geekery and you extrapolate the 6 words that they could have written this article in 6 words and that would have been done with it. Like they don't need all the extraneous stuff. Like I like the fact that you just boiled it down to this is what they're saying. That's what I do. I take all the complicated stuff and make it simple so everyone can do it.
That should totally go on your website.
Start with a stone cold pan.
Right. Not a stone.
And I don't know why or how it works. And I don't care because it does. And I have done it literally hundreds of times. And I also have thousands of people who have written to me to tell me that they love me because now they have juicy pork chops.
All right. So here's the other question. Here's another question for you. Do you spice it or salt it all before you put it in the pan?
No.
Okay. So it's just plain. Naked, and then you salt it or spice it afterwards, right?
Whatever to your taste.
Right.
But the actual cooking of the chop, I do. These are just because I didn't want to bring in any variables. Just naked, cold pork chops.
And now let me. I'm going to point this out to people too.
Cold pan, cold stove.
Cold pan, cold stove, cold chop. If you salt it before you put it in there, you are already whisking moisture away from it, right? Because salt. One of the reasons it works is because it pulls moisture away from whatever it's on. So, if you're adding it before you put it in there, you're ruining the moisture control that you get out of the cold pan, right? So it's one of the reasons you shouldn't salt it afterwards, or salt the side that's cooked when you flip it over, however you want to do it. But it's important that you realize that.
The other point I want to make is that when I tried it and when I actually wrote the recipe up for my blog, I wasn't using some fancy schmancy organic grass raised pork chops from rainbow grunting pigs fed on truffles and warm milk. These were regular pork chops from the grocery store. Actually, they were really cheap regular pork chops from the grocery store.
I'm fascinated by the pork chop you just described. The rainbow grunting magical pork. Is that what you? I'd like to try that now. I'm going to go seek those out.
So these were not. So I don't want anyone to go away thinking, well, she must have had special pork chops, or they must have been, magical pork chops or unicorn pork chops or something. No, these were like your 79 cents a pound. Need to clear them today. Basic grocery store pork chops. So it works.
Okay, but
it works on every pork chop.
You also made a 2-inch pork chop, right? So
actually, for our next project that I'm working on, I did the pork chops. I cooked pork chops to photograph them, and they were like 2 inches thick.
Okay. So that's a lot of pork chop, right? So if this works for something like that, and here's the thing, if you're eating a thicker than 2-inch thick pork chop, you're already like a Cro-Magnon. I'm just saying, you should whittle that back a little bit. I'm just suggesting, because 2-inch thick.
And
pork
obviously the thicker the pork chop and bone in take longer than no bone, but it works on both because I've tried both.
Which do you prefer, bone in?
You need to I don't care as long as it's pork.
Okay.
Bone in look prettier.
You think so?
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that bone in from people who are supposed to know these things. Bone in is better because it adds a certain amount of flavor that the boneless doesn't, because the actual marrow of the bone is available to seep out into the pan. Is there any truth to that?
I also use bone-in pork chops and bone-in chicken pieces to hone my knife and fork eating skills, because of course in England we eat everything with a knife and fork. So I am very good at getting every last cell of chicken off a chicken bone with a knife and fork.
That takes skill. That takes a lot of skill. I'm just saying.
So I do that, bone-in pork chops do help me. Just keep a bit of the homeland blood running.
Right.
Anyway, so cooking time will vary depending on the thickness of your chops. So, obviously the thicker ones will take longer and the bone-in ones will take longer. But the timings for a 1-inch thick pork chop was cold chop, cold pan, cold stove. Slap the 3 together, turn the heat on medium, cook it for 3 minutes. Don't touch it, don't poke it, just walk away. Timer, 3 minutes. Come back, turn it over, sear it, so squash on it with a spatula, 3 minutes. Cook for 3 minutes, don't touch it, walk away. Go back, turn them over and sear, cook for 2 minutes, turn them over and sear, 1 minute, turn it over, 1 minute, done.
And then slide it onto a plate and then just watch it. Just look at it for a minute or two, right? Because it's golden brown at that point. And then you can wallow around in it.
And then you can eat the juiciest pork chop you've ever had in your life.
All right. So there's going to be a run on pork chops now from people who are listening. They're going to go out.
This also works with, you can get the pork loin kind of pieces and the pork shoulder pieces. This works just as well for that because I've tried.
You're a big pork fan, is what you're saying.
I do like a nice piece of pig.
Fantastic. All right. What's the all right, so that basically explains the entire recipe. So what's the final word or what's the parting shot for this?
I know it sounds absurd, but try it. And I promise you, I've had thousands of people tell me about their pork chop nirvana that they now live in.
Right. So
because they now have juicy pork chops and they now eat pork chops a lot more and they have happy husbands.
Right. So here's the thing. Worst case scenario, you try it and you don't like it, right? Which, what's the worst that can happen aside from trichinosis?
The worst that can happen is that you could end up with a pork chop that's just as dry as you normally have.
Exactly. Right. So then in that case, you did something wrong. So
right.
Re-listen to the episode and start over. All right, Carrie Brown.
And I know we like to kind of joke around a lot, and sometimes people are like, wait, what? Was she joking? I'm not joking about this.
She's dead serious. I mean, you should see.
This is not April the 1st. We are not just having a pre-holiday laugh. I'm dead serious. Start with a stone cold pan.
She does not get serious about a lot of things, but boy howdy, the look on her face when she starts talking about pork chops, you do not want to get on her bad side. I'm just saying. I'm telling you right now. I'm looking at it. All right, Carrie Brown. As always, thank you very much. And, we'll talk to you later.
Happy pork chopping.